Hey, Truth Seeker, Zach here. I just noticed in news headlines that Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, will be visiting Congress on February 11th. And this is very curious. Let's get into it. February 11th. So here's the article. John Boehner has supposedly invited him for February 11th. But remember, these people are just actors following what the real bosses are demanding. And also, I want you to notice how when Boehner's on TV, pay attention to this. He's always standing in front of this thing that says America's New Congress. What is this? New Congress? When did we ask for a new Congress? You know, since when? Why are they referring to it as New Congress? Well, I'm going to show you why, Truth Seeker. That ties into Benjamin Netanyahu's visit perfectly. All right, so let's look at this word new in Congress first with Pythagorean gematria. In Pythagorean, n is the 14th letter, so 1 plus 4 becomes 5. E is the 5th letter, W is the 23rd, so 2 plus 3 becomes 5. They're all 555 letters. The word Congress, we do the same thing. We turn each letter into a single digit and sum it. It sums to 37. But if we use the exception on S, because S is the only letter you have to sum twice and keep it 10 instead of 1, it sums to 55, 37, 55. And right away when I saw that, I said, oh, that's interesting. That reminds me of the word hell. Because look at the word hell. In Jewish gematria, it equals 53. And in simple English gematria, it sums to 37. And the thing about hell is you think of Satan. The word Satan sums to 55 as well. So just a little connection there. So New Congress, Pythagorean gematria. Where it gets more interesting is with simple English gematria. New Congress sums to 142. 142, and this is a very curious number. If you write out the word 42 and sum it with simple English gematria, it sums to 142, just like New Congress. President Obama sums to 142. The word terrorist sums to 142, and so do many other names that you know from history that you don't like, such as Charles Manson. It's 142. So Benjamin Netanyahu, he's visiting on February 11th, which is the 42nd day of the year. 42. All this 42, 142 focus. New Congress. The word new equals 42. New is 42. And here we have Benjamin Netanyahu coming on the 42nd day of the year. And this number 42 again, Truth Seeker, three-letter words, war, sin, gun, sum to 42. The Michael Brown thing was very much centered on 42. 42 is the sum of Ferguson and also Missouri with Pythagorean gematria. And since then, we've seen Darren Wilson wearing shirts with the number 42 on it. Past week, we were given a NASA image with an astronaut wearing the number 42. Also, a phrase saying, don't panic. Don't panic sums to 42 in Pythagorean gematria. Also, just aside from being the 42nd day of the year, the day he's visiting on, he's visiting in February, the month that sums to 96, like the word Freemason, like the religion Satanism. And it's also the 11th day. They're into these multiples of 11. And as for Benjamin Netanyahu, he has some interesting gematria himself. The name Netanyahu's 37, just like Congress. Together, his name's 69. His name in Jewish gematria also matches the phrase the Wiz, Benjamin Netanyahu. Just one more time there for more proof, Truth Seeker. February 11th is the 42nd day of the year. And if you follow my blog, I cover 42 a lot. You know, let's just go look quickly, see if we can find anything interesting. The national championship game was won recently with 42 points in college football. Tom Brady. Here's this NASA image. We'll just show this real quick. I just want to show you how this 42 stuff, it's a bound Truth Seeker. I shouldn't say NASA. This is actually the European Space Program, but really it's all the same thing. Here's also the phrase, don't panic, like her t-shirt. So what's the message? Don't panic when Benjamin Netanyahu comes to Congress? Let's watch this news coverage. Also, True Seeker, I just want to make the point that February 11th is 10 days after the Super Bowl this year. So if anything horrible happened on the Super Bowl, it would be all the more curious for Benjamin Netanyahu to be visiting here 10 days later. And also, to me, in my mind, though, that makes me think that whatever event's planned, it's further down the road. So perhaps the Super Bowl will just be more about visuals and planting, foreshadowing images into our mind for what's to come in the year ahead. We will see. It's all soon enough, anyhow. All right, let's watch a little bit of this news coverage, though, on him coming to Congress.
How this came about, our Deirdre Walsh was told by a Republican source that this has been in the works for weeks. This really is, we're not sure if unprecedented is too far down the road, but this is something that almost never happens, a break with protocol. The Speaker of the House inviting a world leader, somebody who is the head of a state that is one of the U.S.'s biggest allies, without talking to the White House about it. There is a very specific reason, as you mentioned, because they so strongly disagree on the Republican side, and even some Democrats, with the way the White House is going forward with negotiations, diplomatic talks to end Iran's nuclear program. Here's what I asked the House Speaker. Did you consult with the White House before inviting Prime Minister Netanyahu? And secondly, is this just a way to sort of poke the president in the eye on an issue like Iran, where you know he very much opposes what you want to do?
I did not consult with the White House. The Congress can make this decision on its own. I don't believe I'm poking anyone in the eye. There is a serious threat that exists in the world. And the president last night kind of papered over it. And the fact is that there needs to be a more serious conversation in America about how serious the threat is.
Now, we have a little bit more information on how this came about. Our Deirdre Walsh was told by a Republican source that this has been in the works for weeks, having Benjamin Netanyahu come here and address the Congress well before the president said privately and publicly with this new Congress that they should not do anything with sanctions, and pleaded with them privately, certainly among Democrats last week, not to do so. The other thing that we can tell you is that they didn't consult, but we are told by administration source and also now Republicans that what the Speaker did is he placed a phone call this morning just to inform the White House that he invited the Israeli Prime Minister. And leading up to this, John, there will be hearings and likely some votes about these Iran sanctions, pushing forward on sanctions ahead of Benjamin Netanyahu coming and likely saying he supports what Republicans are doing and opposes the president.
So there it is, True Seeker, unprecedented. And I will remind you, it was the prior Prime Minister and also Defense Minister in Israel, Ehud Barak, who changed his name to Barak, spelled this way, which is a name summing to 33 like so many world leaders do. Ehud Barak came to the United States on September 12th, 2001, the day after 9/11, and was the first person to use the phrase war on terrorism. He said the United States needed to declare a war on terrorism. And of course, Israel are pros at this because they'd been fighting a war on terrorism in the decades before we started ours. Their mission spread to our mission. And now here we can see that we're coming to this climax. We can see that another major false flag is on the horizon. I predict it will be sometime between now and 2017. That's a big window. I expect it sooner than later. But it's just no surprise. I've always said that since there was no justice for 9/11 and we're still believing the same lie as a collective society, there will definitely be a part two. And perhaps it will be a lot bigger and a lot more significant for many of us. And perhaps it'll be more of an international thing as well. Maybe the United States, isn't the only target, because as we see, we're not always the only target. Many other nations have gotten much worse. But it's all coming to a head, and having Israel's prime minister in our own Congress, led by John Boehner. Did we talk about John Boehner himself? how he is the leader of the 114th Congress. The name John Boehner sums to 114. The 114th Congress was decided November 4th, 11-4. Number 2 in command is Orrin Hatch. And if you look at Orrin's name, it's curious because it has an extra R. His spelling also sums to 114, just like John Boehner for the 114th Congress. I'm telling you guys, this stuff is so well thought out, it's mind-blowing. And it's really happening. So, don't panic. That is true. But just be aware how they're teasing us, Truth Seeker. And keep your eyes open. Alright, until next time.